You're watching India Today Global. The swearing-in ceremony for Iran's new president-elect Masoud Pezeshkian has concluded. He indeed is the new president of Iran. The 69-year-old heart surgeon replaces late President Ebrahim Raisi, who was killed in a helicopter crash near the Azerbaijan border in May, along with his foreign minister and 7 others. The swearing-in ceremony took place just a while ago, and Pezeshkian was presented with a decree for his upcoming presidency by the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Moreover, in his first official act in office, Pezeshkian has appointed Mohammad Reza Arif as his first vice president. He is known to be a reformist and a very close ally of the former president. Now, what is he really going to do as he pledges to promote pragmatic foreign policy, ease tensions over now stalled negotiations with major powers, and to revive a 2015 nuclear pact? To speak about this, joining me is Syed Imamiani, who is a political analyst and a thinker associated with a major think tank in Tehran. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Let's begin with the oath taking itself and the fact that now you have a new president who is known to be a reformist. Was there skepticism when it came to appointing him as a leader? And in that skepticism, do you think the new president will be able to deliver on the promises he's made?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to your program. Actually, Mr. Pezeshkian, as you briefly introduced him, he has been very respectful in a very important part of Iran for several decades. He has been MP for 5 times, and plus one administration. During the Khatami administration, he was appointed as a health minister. So he's well experienced and he's politically well respected. So he was also supported by a huge political camp in Iran, very important and powerful political camp of reformists. With regards to the establishment as a whole,
Mr.
and
Imamian,
the whole political system also.
Mr. Imamian, can I interrupt you a little and just ask you to maybe straighten your frame a little, because your frame is a little slanted to the left. So if you could just make it a little straight for our viewers. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes.
Is it okay now?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
Yes. As was, I was saying that Mr. Pezeshkian is not only respectful in the local area that he has been MP for 5 times from the very important part of the Iran called Azerbaijan. He also has been supported by the very important and influential political camp of reformists. But what is important is that even the other political parts of the Iranian politics, including the establishment as a whole, the supreme leader and associated organizations and departments, public departments, all of them, they have declared their political support for Mr. Pezeshkian, because everyone knows that the election was something that never thought before, and something a bit surprising for everyone. So Mr. Pezeshkian came to the power in a very short period of time, very short notice period of time. So he needs a lot of support to be established. And his administration needs a lot of political support from the parliament and from the other parts of the political parties, Iranian politics, to be able to establish a full cabinet very soon, as soon as possible. So there is politically now everyone is talking about how to support Mr. Pezeshkian, whilst there are a lot of political divergence in terms of the political attitude. But even Mr. Pezeshkian himself has declared that he is not going to be a divisive, politically divisive figure. So he is going to be very much consensual in terms of his political attitudes. And so everyone is hopeful that his cabinet will be established very soon by the support of the parliament.
What were the apprehensions? What do you think he would not have done? Because he does come across as somebody, one, who is now, who reflects Iran's diversity. His ethnicity, of course, shows and expresses the diversity within Iran. His father is an Iranian Azerbaijani, while his mother hails from Kurdish community. So clearly there is a lot that he has to offer. He lost his wife, Sayed, at a very, when he himself was very young, and he had 3 kids who he brought up on his own. He lost a child and his wife. A heart surgeon himself. So there's a lot that he comes when it comes to from experience. He already had served as a state minister for health, and now he brings all that into this new government that he's been appointed as the head of. What were the apprehensions for the leadership, for the clerical leadership?
Actually, I missed part of your question, but if I'm going to say something about some pros and cons of Mr. Pezeshkian's administration that could be expected, is that he will be very much supported by a large proportion of the Iranian population, that they are from the Turk ethnic. So you know that in that part of the Iran, there has been always some sounds of, or some voices of separationists. So having a president from that ethnicity will help the Iranian politics to bring about a very important proportion of the population with the whole political system. So Mr. Pezeshkian will be privileged by the support of his local constituency. At the same time, as I mentioned, Mr. Pezeshkian has been endorsed by a very important political camp. But to be honest, there are a lot of challenges in the way of his administration. Particularly, everyone is waiting to hear from his office about the list of the ministers that he is going to deliver to the Iranian parliament. And there are some risks of, first of all, introducing some very divisive and radical figures. And that would be very challenging, because the current parliament is very sensitive in terms of radical political figures from reformist camp.
Right.
So it's less likely, by the approach that Mr. Pezeshkian has declared by now, that he is not going to introduce a kind of the radical cabinet. But still, there are some speculation about the list of the ministers that he is going to propose to the parliament.
Right.
Another challenge will be about the upcoming U.S. election, that everyone in Iran, like everywhere else, almost everywhere else, are talking about the possibility of the Trump's re-election. So there are a lot of challenges in the way of the Iran-US relationship and in terms of the sanctions.
Well, I was just coming to that. I was just coming to that, talking about the sanctions itself. Now, in terms of foreign policy, this is going to be a very interesting one. He now has a very pragmatic approach. The announcement he's made is very different from what maybe Sayed Jalili's, presidency would have looked like, because he would have really gone the conservative way. With the Khamenei taking control of what should be and what shouldn't be. Over here, Sayed, how do you see this entire thing play out with the United States of America? What is the reaction that you see from the United States of America, given that this was not an expected result? In fact, if anything, it was absolutely unexpected to see a reformist win the way he has, and after a lot of reluctance to be now appointed as president. So are we seeing changes, shift in how Iran is going to conduct itself with the United States of America, with the sanctions, and also at a time when the region is facing a war, a conflict with Israel?
Actually, there are some hopes and fears. First of all, with Mr. Pezeshkian's administration, there are some hopes of using some remaining months from the Biden's administration to revive the nuclear deal. Also, in the case of the Trump election, there is always some hopes that Mr. Pezeshkian's approach towards the European will help Iran to some extent isolate Trump's foreign policy, particularly Trump's hostile foreign policy towards Iran. So there are a lot of hopes, but at the same time there are some fears, because everyone is thinking about the risk of over-reliance of Mr. Pezeshkian's administration on the revival of the nuclear deal. That it is not more likely in the case of the Trump's re-election. So there are some hopes and fears, as I said, and everyone is now waiting for Mr. Pezeshkian's cabinet to be proposed to the parliament. So his real term will start very soon, and depends on who will be appointed or will be proposed to the parliament as a candidate for foreign ministry. It would be a lot of speculation afterwards. But generally speaking, I think Mr. Pezeshkian and his team, particularly his very important political advisor, Ambassador Javad Zarif, they are very much have thought about potential scenarios, and they have a lot of political ideas and thinking about how to manage Iran-US relationship.
Right. Again, as somebody who is looking at things very differently, we've seen how there have been differences in terms of endorsements and how the Kurdish community is being represented. You see, the Turkey president had a very unique way of doing it when he appointed an ethnic Kurd, Hakan Fidan, as foreign minister, and now we're looking at yet another Kurdish descent president in Iran. Do you think that certainly is going to be a significant posturing when it comes to the Kurdish community? We have seen significant differences and fissures within the Kurdish forces. What do you reckon this will really do?
If I have heard your question well, you asked about some ethnic groups, communities, particularly Kurdish groups.
Yes.
Actually, you know that the Iranian political system is not a federalist system. Is not divided in terms of the different ethnics or different regions. This is a unified political system. So always we have had some ideas amongst the different ethnicities that they are living, particularly in the near to border areas, including the Kurdish different movements, and you have heard recently about the Baluch different movements. But at the same time, the Iranian political system is very keen not to divide the system as the whole system to different to the shade of different ethnicity. This is a very unifying system. So whilst Mr. Pezeshkian has tried to provide a kind of the representation for the diversity of the Iranian ethnicities, but at the same time he has declared and he has emphasized on the whole the unity of the political system, the unity of the Iranian political system and his administration. So I don't think that he will continue with this kind of the divisions. He will try to provide a very unified administration, not being divided. Iran is very different from the Iraq political system, some other countries, including Iraq political system. Iran is not going to let different ethnicity to have their own share, as their own share. Yes, they could be part of the administration, but this is no kind of the separate share of the political share of different ethnicity in the Iranian political system.
Right.
So I don't think any problem will happen from this point of view.
Right, Mr. Mamian, in your appreciation, do you think Mr. Pezeshkian is an outsider? He has not had the kind of experience others have had. He is considered somebody who does not stick to the kind of politics that you see from the conservative belt. So is he an outsider in the establishment?
Actually, I don't prefer to call him as an outsider, because he has been inside the system as an MP and a minister. But what is more important is that most of his advisors and his political camps are previous ministers, that they have been in power for at least 8 years until 3 years ago. So most of them are very well updated and insiders, as you may call it. Look at, for example, Ambassador Javad Zarif,
yes,
or Minister Rabi, that both they are very close to the Mr. Pezeshkian at the moment, and they have been in power for 8 years until 2-3 years ago.
right,
So his camp and his political camp as a whole is very much inside the system. But
right,
Pezeshkian himself, I would say, has been for a long time a local political figure rather than a national level political figure.
Okay.
So from his personal point of view, he would be someone that never been in national level at least for 20 years. Since his ministership. But his system, his camp and his inner circle are very much well experienced and well respected inside the Iranian politics.
But he was never close to the military or security establishment. In fact, his only background in the army was through conscription at age 19. And following that service, he actually ended up going to medical school and becoming a heart surgeon. So technically, if you see being within the system or not, he actually is not rather than in. But like you rightly said, Mr. Mamian, that his friends are, and he has seen and experienced administrative work. But again, my final leg of questions would be on the fact that he's a reformist. His political career began in 1997, and then 4 years later he became the minister, the health minister. He has had a very important career when it comes to the Iranian government, but when it comes to a few things like in parliament in the recent past, when it comes to the conservative administration as opposed to what he represents, do you think that under his government there will be more freedom for women? Because when the Mahsa Amini case happened, he in parliament had said, and he'd written later, that it was unacceptable for the Islamic Republic to arrest a girl for her hijab and then hand over her dead body to her family. So he did call for transparency and accountability, and that really made him a champion of reform.
Again, I'm a bit worried that I have missed a part of your question. But in terms of his involvement into the establishment and his connection with the military and security departments, as I mentioned, he has been well supported by two very influential and important ex-presidents, Mr. Rouhani and Mr. Khatami. You know that the Mr. Rouhani's administration was called inside Iran as a very security-based administration. So you could see now a few more important, very important and influential advisors of Mr. Pezeshkian. They have been ex-ministers during the Rouhani's administration. And most of them, they have kind of the security background. So Mr. Pezeshkian is not someone that's a kind of the isolated or disconnected from the establishment here. And I'm sure also something that has been very clearly stated by the Supreme Leader and his office is that everyone is going to be in full support for Mr. Pezeshkian. But generally speaking, I would say that there is no such a concern of his connection and his likely support from the military and security establishment.
Okay.
Something that is very important is that...
Mr. Imamian, talking about reforms then, I also asked you that, do you think there will be more freedom for women under reformists such as Mr. Pezeshkian? Because after the death of Mahsa Amini in parliament, and later he also wrote that it was unacceptable for a country like the Islamic Republic to arrest a girl for her hijab and then hand over her dead body to her family. He did call for transparency and accountability. Do you think these are reforms that he'll really champion as president as well?
I don't know what's the problem of the voice is not clear for me. But if you have asked about the challenges that we had in last 2 years here with the women movements, I think that Mr. Pezeshkian has been very clear, even 2 years ago during the riots and unrest, that he was very much clearly in support of the rights of the woman. Whilst at the same time, he has been very, again, clear in support of the national security. So I think Mr. Pezeshkian is going to tactically change some regulations and rules. But at the same time, he is going to keep his connection and his support from the establishment, and very important one, from the religious establishment. And you know that the religious leaders, that they are mainly based in some specific cities like Qom and Mashhad, they are very influential. And at the same time, most of them, they are in support of Mr. Pezeshkian right now, because he has been known as a very clearly religious figure, that he's practicing religion, and he clearly in support of the religious community inside Europe.
All right. Again, we've seen that he's had unsuccessful attempts in the past, and yet finally he has made it as president of Iran. In terms of the Israel-Hamas war, we have seen Iran take a very important, strong, harsh position on how to take on Israel. Only recently there were exercises that took place between Iran and Russia, strongly messaging Israel that their war will be in futility if they continue pounding Gaza. Do you think over here that foreign policy initiative and move and position will not change, or do you think that will also change a little with the engagements that we will now see with the West?
I would like to ask you to some extent, repeat last sentences of your question.
Okay. I just wanted to know whether if under the new president, will the Israel-Hamas war and Iran's position remain the same, or will it change because of his new engagements with the West? How is Iran going to position itself when it comes to Gaza and Palestine?
Yeah, in terms of Iran's position towards the Palestine and Palestine, I would say that is very fundamental for the Iranian political system. So Mr. Pezeshkian has declared since the first day his support to the Palestinian people and his support to the very fundamental and foundational Iranian foreign policy towards Israeli occupation and oppression to on the Palestinian people. So I won't see any shift in that regard. I would say that Mr. Pezeshkian is going to use some privileges and opportunities for his administration in terms of the much more close connection to some Western countries, just to convince them that they need to shift their support to the Israeli regime as much as possible. Yes, in last few weeks and months, we have seen some European countries, at least T1, that they have declared and they have recognized the Palestinian state. So everyone is hopeful that in next few weeks or months, this kind of the recognition of the Palestinian state will be symbolically followed by other European countries. But generally speaking, I won't see any chance for shifting policy towards Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. Iran always foundationally and fundamentally is in support of the Palestinian rights and is against the every political figures and every political fractions inside the Iranian politics are in support of the Palestinian rights and against the Israeli occupation, oppression, and genocide that is happening now inside Gaza.
Okay, that's a very important point you make. And finally, before I let you go, should there be any improvement in ties and with regards to a revival of the nuclear deal, as also the sanctions that the West might look at, at least easing a little, how will that then impact India-Iran relations and the work in Chabahar port, or the continuation of the strategic projects that we're looking at in Chabahar?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Actually, again, the Iran-India relationship has been in a very good status for a long period of time. It's very civilizational relationship. So every political party inside Iran and almost all administrations in Iran, they are always in support of the enhancement of the Iran-Indian political relationship. But in terms of the specific project of the Chabahar, there is also a kind of the political consensus amongst the Iranian politicians that Indians' over-reliance Indian over compliance to the U.S. sanctions has wasted this opportunity for several years. So the Chabahar project has been to some extent practically suspended because of the, as I said, Indian over compliance with the U.S. Unilateral coercive measures. So I think there is always an open approach from the Iranian side. But I would say that this is a very important decision to be made in New Delhi about how to manage the case of the Chabahar projects with the U.S. sanctions. So I think I have heard in my discussion and some negotiations, some talks with the Indian politicians, that they are to some extent even more hopeful that with the more likely Trump's re-election, they would be even more hopeful to have some kind of the exemption from the U.S. sanctions. But as I said, this is to some extent a kind of the political consensus inside Iran that the Chabahar project has never progressed well until now because of the Indian over-compliance with the U.S., you call it sanction.
Well, that's a very important point you make, Mr. Imamian. Can I just come in here? You say over-compliance of India when it comes to Western sanctions. Do you think India was a bit unfair when it came to not looking at Iran and India-Iran interests, as opposed to how they did not comply with the sanctions, Western sanctions, when it came to Russia and the Russia-Ukraine war?
I don't have any kind of the clear comparison between India's policy towards Iran and Russia, but I would say from the Iranian point of view, the way that the Chinese have approached Iran has been much more, I think, constructive rather than the Indians' approach. And as I said, to be honest, there are a lot of criticism inside the Iranian politics that we shouldn't be waiting for several years for Indians to complete the Chabahar projects, while at the same time there are some other options on the table. But to be honest, I don't have any comparison between, as I said, Indian policies towards Iran and Russia. I have heard that India has been very helpful in terms of continuous import of the Russian oil, rather than the Iranian-Indian oil deal that has been almost zero in last few years. But from the Iranian point of view, the way that other countries like China and Russia, they have approached Iran, and the way that they have complied with the U.S. sanction is quite different from the way that India is doing.
Right. Syed Imamian from the Governance and Policy think tank. Thank you so much for joining us from Tehran and allowing us to get a glimpse of what's happening in Iran, as also giving your perspective on Iran's domestic, regional, as also foreign policy. Thank you so much for joining us here. This is all a very important news development. This comes at a time when India and Iran are looking at furthering ties. In the recent 2024-25 budget, India allocated rupees 100 crore for this for the Chabahar project. But there are challenges ahead, and investments are going to be confronted with a lot of sanctions. So what is Masoud Pezeshkian going to do as he navigates this complex political landscape is something we'll have to wait and see, given that there are complexities within Iran as also without, which means outside of Iran. So only looking at a new government right now in Iran and looking at this new chapter for Iran with maybe a positive angle, but also we will be tracking developments on how this really plays out, not just for Iran domestically, but also regionally, as there is a war that is underway, an ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, and then also regionally when it comes to, bilaterally when it comes to Iran, India, and how the new president is going to engage the West to ensure that sanctions are eased so that there is more engagement that Iran could have, not just with India, but with other parts of the world as well. Thank you for watching India Today Global.